Hi, I'm Mike Bresnan.
And I'm JoAnna Bresnan, and we traveled here from Costa Rica to attend the Bioneers Conference here in San Rafael, California. This is an exciting time for us because we're having an opportunity to gather with other like-minded individuals who really care about the future that our children are going to inherit.
We've come from a lot of different places, but here we have people from just about every area of life doing wonderful things that are making a difference. So we're excited about being here today. We're from Vista del Valle, Plantation Inn in Rosario, Costa Rica, and we're representing Children Feeding Children, a program that we've developed as a part of our sustainable business. And we're excited to meet with like-minded people who are doing things for the earth in a way that works for the earth and each other.
The Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Agriculture are teaming up with us to help put 1,000 organic school gardens in schools throughout Costa Rica.
So we're anxious to attend as many of the events as possible because we believe these people are on the cutting edge of a whole new way of being. This is a whole new way for us to be able to love the earth and each other and include each other in a transcending reality that will produce a synergism that never has been seen on the planet before.
We believe that now is the time, and we, among many, are the people that are going to make this change. And as I heard someone speak earlier this week, the change is going to happen one way or the other. It's either going to be by design or by default, and I choose to design the change that is going to make a positive difference for my grandchildren and yours.
We're really grateful to be here and to experience this wonderful opportunity for so many of us to come together, to learn about what we're doing, to get to know each other, and to network, because this network is traveling quickly at the speed of the internet around the earth, and we're growing new coalitions and new alliances, and there's new things happening on the earth that are going to be wonderful to see in our near future.
So these are exciting times. Change.
Transformation. Imaginal cells turning a goo into something beautiful. So here we are at the Bioneers. So grateful for having experienced this.
What led you to this place of being passionate about what you're doing?
Well, it was a little bit of a weird journey. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest in a family that we did a lot of camping and spent a lot of time in the woods, and I just loved being in the woods. And this was way, I was a child, way before I knew about carbon sequestration and hydrological cycles and all. But I would see these clear cuts with these huge logging trucks going by, and I kept thinking, what's going on? Something felt wrong. So then I ended up going to study in the university in New York City, which is a funny place to go if you're interested in forests. But that's where I found out the second piece of the puzzle, because I would walk down the street in New York and I would see huge piles of garbage. And I became just mesmerized by what is in all those bags of garbage. So I opened them up and it was paper. And still today in the United States, when recycling has been a household word for generations already, still there is about 40% of our garbage is paper in this country. So just by reducing our use of paper and recycling, we could cut our garbage almost in half. And I was just stunned about what is all this paper doing there, and then where does it go? So I decided to follow it to the next step, and I took a trip out to the landfill, which is something I recommend everyone does. Everybody should go visit a landfill yearly. It's a fascinating experience. And I stood there as a college student, and I looked out as far as I could see in every direction was waste. There was furniture and appliances and food and shoes and books, and I just thought, my God, there is something fundamentally wrong with an economy that is set up on the destruction of resources and is so effective at keeping it hidden. So I remember it so well. I was 18 years old. I said, I am going to figure this out and tell everybody what I find out. So it took me 20 years. I traveled all over the world. I visited hundreds of factories where our stuff is made and dumps where our stuff is dumped, and I summarized everything I saw in the Story of Stuff. This message is so very important because we are butting up against the planet's ecological limits. We have one planet, and globally right now we're using 1.5 planets worth of resources. It's simply not a sustainable trajectory. This is not about left or right on the political spectrum. It's not about being conservative or progressive. This is about it's physically impossible to continue on the trajectory that we're on. So people often ask me, do I think change is possible? I say change is inevitable. You can't keep using 1.5 planets when you only have one planet indefinitely. Change is inevitable. The question is not if we're going to change, it's how. Are we going to change by design or by default? Either way, it's going to be hard work. But if we change by design, we can be so much more compassionate, intentional, strategic, intelligent. If we dig our heels in, refuse to acknowledge the harsh realities, we're still going to change. We're going to change by default, but it's going to be a lot uglier, a lot less fair, a lot less violent. I just hope we don't hold out for that. I want to start changing now while we still have the space to do it. I think what I would tell the future generations is, I'm sorry. I'm sorry we didn't do better. I'm sorry we eliminated all these species you never got to see. I'm sorry that we polluted water that will take generations to clean up, but it can get better. The most important thing I think people today and in the future know is it doesn't have to be this way. If these problems were intractable, it'd be really hard to get out of bed in the morning. They're not. It is absolutely possible to live on this beautiful planet sustainably, justly, and having much more fun than we're having right now. So let's do it.
Well, it's easy to come to Bioneers because I've got 2 granddaughters in the Bay Area, so I'm out here partly for that. Bioneers brings together the widest array of people involved in sustainability, I think, anywhere on the planet. And so this, as they say in the parlance of the common language, this is a big tent. The people who do healing and people who do design and people who do politics, I mean, it's a whole range of things. So that's one of the reasons why I'm here. The job before us is to figure out how all of these parts somehow fit together into a whole. And so a good bit of my work over the next few years is going to be directed to taking what we did on the making of the Adam Joseph Lewis Center up to scale and take this into another dimension where we create systems of sustainability where the parts actually reinforce the integrity, prosperity, resilience, and durability of the whole thing. And I think we've been at this for 30 or 40 years now. The parts and the research and we know how to do this. It's not any longer a technological issue. It's now an issue of how do we integrate this into a whole. So I'm here as part of the Bioneers revolution. Bioneers is going into Europe and possibly into the Asian market, but pulling people together around the planet. How do we remake the human presence on Earth in a way that is decent, fair, durable, and lovely? So that's why I'm here. Well, it's a good question. Resilience is something you never quite get. On an individual life form, you run. I mean, all of our lives are run between, disintegration and total integration, and we stray back and forth on that continuum. As a culture in a rapidly moving world, there are a couple things that are going to be really important. What should move rapidly? What should move more slowly? And it's pretty clear that some things that ought to move rapidly, like responding to climatic disorder and climatic destabilization, that ought to move very quickly. There's some things that are cultural that ought to move very slowly for all the reasons that people on the conservative side of the spectrum could say, and on the liberal side of the perspective, this tension between rapid movement and slow movement. Resilience is about finding that sweet spot where, as a friend of mine puts it in the Marine Corps, you can take a gut punch and you can still survive it. But how do we begin to create resilience in the world where the agricultural, the food system is threatened, the grid is vulnerable? I mean, so many vulnerabilities. How do we begin to do this? And the point of fact is that had we organized national policy to do 30 years ago what was being proposed 30 years ago in documents in the Carter years and in the 1970s, we would not have had 9/11. We wouldn't be fighting wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. We would have an economy that was far more resilient. We missed the boat because we were sold a bill of goods, and this is into politics, that this was morning in America again. And we went off on a wild jaunt for something that didn't exist. And now we've got to go back, retrace some of our steps to begin to build a society that is genuinely resilient. But that means localizing food system to a great extent. localizing economy, that means solar energy, that means local jobs, less reliance on long distance transport of about everything. That's local economies, bicycles, local schools, and so forth. So that's the job ahead of us. And if we don't do that, we are very vulnerable to lots of things, from climate change to some pretty bad people that we can't defend ourselves against. And we're right now very vulnerable. So that's part of the challenge of resilience. I believe in the human capacity to act. And I'm not an optimist. If you're an optimist, you don't know enough. But you can't go to the other extreme and be a pessimist and fall into despair. That's a sin. So I've defined the middle ground, that sweet spot, as hope, but hope is a verb with its sleeves rolled up. Hope is something that requires us to act. And I believe in the human capacity to hope and to deal with these issues with ingenuity and real creativity.
We've been truly blessed here at Bioneers Conference, and I hope all of you will participate also by looking at Bioneers.org and see how we can begin to connect together, because all of this is wonderful content and a tremendous opportunity for us to connect and to be able to add to each other in a way that this movement will continue to bring transformation, include people from all different walks, all different types of ministries and activities and businesses, to really become a new energy and force here on the earth for connection, that we would be able to walk out with all the information that we've received here and really be able to connect to our neighborhoods and learn how to become better friends and begin to be able to help our communities and become community for one another.
As one of the gentlemen said in one of the talks that we got to attend, he said, my grandchildren's grandchildren came to me in a dream and they said, what did you do in this time? And when the earth was running out of water, when the forests were being deforested, when plastic was taking over the oceans, and all the contamination was happening, what did you do? And I want to say, what will we do? We shall do something great together, and we will deal with all these issues. And like I said earlier, change is about to come down, but we are going to divinely inspire the direction it's going to go.
But let me just say in closing, we've developed a program called Children Feeding Children that we believe has global significance. Please connect with us at vistavalle.com and let us tell you about Children Feeding Children in a way that we all of us children can help feed each other and deal with food security in a way that can help us move on together.
There's no reason for hunger.